It started as just another humid August in Atlanta. A family that looked ordinary from the outside. A husband, a wife, a teenage daughter, a small home in the southwest part of the city. But behind those walls, control, betrayal, and greed were quietly brewing, setting the stage for one of the most haunting domestic mysteries investigators had seen in years. This is the story of Marcus and Selena Freeman, their brother Darnell, and a friend who turned out to be far from what he seemed. By the time police untangled the truth, two people were dead. A husband was in handcuffs, and a family name that once meant hard work and success would be forever tied to murder. Marcus Freeman was 42 years old, a construction business owner known in his community as reliable and disciplined. He wasn't wealthy, but people said he worked hard, took pride in what he built, and tried to maintain a good reputation. His wife, 39-year-old Selena Freeman, worked as an office administrator for a medical practice, steady, kind, and well-liked at her job. Together, they had a 15-year-old daughter, Jada, who attended a nearby public high school. To anyone outside their home, the Freemans looked like a typical middle-class family living a normal life. But according to relatives, Marcus's confidence often crossed into control. He monitored his wife's bank activity, questioned her calls, even managed every household account himself. What he saw as responsibility, others quietly described as obsession. Marcus's younger brother, Darnell Freeman, had a far different story. At 38, he was just a year out of prison after serving 6 years for burglary. He was trying to rebuild his life, working a local auto shop doing basic repair jobs. Marcus occasionally gave him small shifts at construction sites, but often reminded Darnell that he owed him, financially and morally. To outsiders, it looked like a brother trying to help. But within the family, that help came with constant judgment. Darnell once told a cousin that Marcus acts like he owns people, and that phrase would echo long after Darnell's death. On August 17th, 2021, just before noon, a 911 call went out from the small auto shop where Darnell worked. A hydraulic lift had suddenly collapsed while he was underneath a sedan. Co-workers rushed to pull him out, but by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Darnell was pronounced dead at the scene. The first OSHA inspection classified the event as a tragic workplace accident, mechanical failure, nothing more. Marcus arranged the funeral himself, covered the costs, and contacted relatives. But even during the service, something didn't feel right to those who attended. It was a quiet church in southwest Atlanta, the kind that holds generations of memories for local families. But this funeral had a tension no one could quite name. In the front row, seated closest to Darnell's casket, was Selena, Marcus's wife. She cried harder than almost anyone, her grief raw and visible. People whispered. One cousin leaned toward Marcus and asked why Selena was sitting up front like that. Others said they had seen her visiting the auto shop in the evenings. Some had even seen her getting out of Darnell's pickup truck. A few brushed it off as kindness. Maybe she was checking on her brother-in-law. But the seed of suspicion had been planted. Among the mourners that day was Lamont Walker, a 43-year-old neighbor who lived just a few doors down from the Freemans. Walker was known in the area, a man always around, sometimes helpful, sometimes a little too comfortable in other people's business. He didn't have a steady job, but he spent plenty of time at the Freeman home, helping with errands or small repairs. Marcus tolerated him, but there was something about Walker's constant presence that rubbed him the wrong way. During the funeral, Marcus noticed Lamont staying close to Selena, comforting her, even guiding her by the arm. To some, it looked like compassion. To Marcus, it felt like disrespect. Days after the funeral, the whispers continued. Then came a discovery that would change everything. Marcus learned that Darnell had a life insurance policy, $250,000. But the beneficiary wasn't Darnell's longtime girlfriend. It wasn't Marcus or any other family member. The sole beneficiary was Selena Freeman. Marcus confronted his wife immediately. She insisted there was nothing inappropriate between her and Darnell, saying that Darnell had trusted her to manage the money responsibly for the family. But Marcus didn't buy it. Why had Darnell chosen his brother's wife? Why was Selena visiting the shop so often? Why did her grief look so personal? From that moment, silence filled the Freeman house. Conversations turned short, meals went untouched, and Marcus began searching for answers on his own. Then came another surprise. While looking through Selena's things, Marcus found a small bank envelope with paperwork from a regional credit union. The account wasn't one he recognized. It had been opened 6 months earlier, right around the time Darnell took out the insurance policy. When he asked about it, Selena said it was a savings fund for their daughter Jada's future. But Marcus no longer trusted her word. Meanwhile, the auto shop investigation took a strange turn. OSHA's final inspection revealed that the hydraulic lift's bolts hadn't simply worn out. They'd been tampered with. The threading was uneven, with tool marks suggesting someone had deliberately loosened them. The case was reclassified from accident to undetermined cause. Suddenly, Darnell's death didn't look so simple. As police began revisiting the case, Marcus's paranoia grew. He started reviewing Selena's phone, her texts, her habits. One evening in early September, at a neighborhood barbecue, Marcus overheard Lamont Walker joking about Darnell's death. He said Marcus never respected his brother, and that only Selena had ever cared about Darnell. To Marcus, it was the final insult. Walker had become too comfortable, visiting the house while Marcus was at work, bringing groceries for Selena, checking on her like a husband would. Marcus felt something dark closing in. Then came a moment that changed the entire investigation. Detectives obtained Darnell's phone from his girlfriend, and inside, they found a text message sent the very day of the fatal accident. It was from a contact saved as S. The message read, "Meet me after he leaves. We need to settle it." The timing lined up almost perfectly with the hours before the hydraulic lift collapsed. When Marcus saw the phone records, he recognized S as Selena Freeman. That was all he needed to believe the worst. Acting on his own, Marcus went through Selena's purse and found something shocking. A prepaid cell phone, purchased under no name. On it were text messages between Selena and Lamont Walker, and between Selena and Darnell. One message from a night Darnell died read, "Tonight, we divided. Don't come too early." To Marcus, that was clear proof. He believed his wife, his brother, and his neighbor had plotted something: money, betrayal, maybe even murder. On September 12th, 2021, Marcus called both Selena and Lamont to come over, saying he wanted to clear the air. Neighbors later reported hearing loud arguing that night, and again the next morning. Around 2:45 p.m. on September 13th, a relative tried calling Selena but got no answer. Concerned, they called the police. When officers arrived at the Freeman home, they found Selena unresponsive in the living room. She was declared dead at the scene. Marcus Freeman was arrested without resistance, his face emotionless as neighbors watched from their porches. The official report described it as a domestic homicide, a controlling husband who snapped after learning too much. But then, the story began to change. Days later, the Fulton County Medical Examiner's office released its findings. Selena hadn't died from blunt force trauma. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of struggle. Instead, toxicology revealed traces of ethylene glycol, the main component in antifreeze, and a mild sedative. The pattern suggested poisoning, not assault. Even more surprising, the medical team determined that Selena's ingestion occurred at least 12 hours before the shouting neighbors heard. In other words, she was already dying before the supposed fight ever began. The case suddenly made no sense. Detectives reviewed neighborhood security footage and found a critical clue. A doorbell camera 2 houses away showed Lamont Walker arriving at the Freeman home the evening before Selena's death. Marcus's truck was gone at the time. Walker was carrying a tote bag and stayed inside for about 14 minutes before leaving on foot. When police examined Walker's recent purchases, things turned dark. He'd bought radiator antifreeze, gelatin capsules, and rubber gloves from 2 different stores. Forensics found traces of glove prints on Selena's kitchen counter and identified mixed DNA, Walker's and Selena's, on a ceramic mug from the sink. Meanwhile, Darnell's case reopened. Investigators traced Walker's phone near the auto shop the night before the hydraulic lift collapsed. They even recovered a deleted web search from his computer, how to bleed pressure from 2 post lift safeties. In Walker's shed, Police found a crowbar with microscopic tool marks that matched the damage on the lift safety pin. It became clear that both deaths were linked by one man and one motive. The investigation also uncovered a twisted backstory. 3 years earlier, Walker had lost a civil judgment after a failed business partnership with Marcus. Marcus had cut him out of a subcontracting deal, and Walker never forgot it. Now, it appeared Walker had manipulated both Darnell and Selena, encouraging Darnell to take out an insurance policy and naming Selena as the beneficiary. When Darnell died, Walker gained indirect control of the POU through Selena. But when Selena became suspicious, or perhaps unwilling to share, Walker eliminated her too, using the same quiet, methodical planning. Detectives confronted Marcus with a new evidence. He admitted he'd argued with Selena and Walker, but denied harming his wife. His daughter Jada supported him, saying she'd heard her mother sounding weak and slurred hours before any fight took place. Based on the new timeline, Marcus was released. The spotlight shifted squarely to Lamont Walker. When Walker was arrested at his duplex, he claimed he was being framed. But the evidence told a different story. Inside his home, investigators found partially filled capsules, rubber gloves, and fragments of a deleted PDF detailing hydraulic lift mechanics. In one of his jail calls later recovered by prosecutors, Walker was overheard saying, "I was supposed to take the fall. Now they digging in receipts." That single line erased any doubt about his role. The district attorney decided to merge both deaths, Darnell's and Selena's, into one trial. In court, prosecutors walked the jury through a chilling timeline. Walker's visits to the auto shop, the deleted surveillance footage, the tampered lift bolts, the antifreeze purchase, and his DNA in Selena's kitchen. They argued that Walker had orchestrated both murders for revenge and money, using Selena as his tool, then silencing her when she became inconvenient. The defense tried to shift blame, painting Walker as a bystander caught in a toxic family web. But forensic science didn't lie. Tool mark experts demonstrated that the crowbar from Walker's shed exactly matched the damage on the lift. The medical examiner confirmed Selena's death occurred hours before any fight, proof that Marcus couldn't have caused it. And then, the prosecution played Walker's own recorded call for the jury. After 2 days of deliberation, the verdict was unanimous. Lamont Walker was found guilty of malice murder in the death of Selena Freeman, felony murder and aggravated assault in the death of Darnell Freeman, as well as insurance fraud and evidence tampering. Marcus Freeman, once painted as the killer, was formally cleared. The judge called Walker's crimes predation disguised as friendship. When given a chance to speak, Walker said only one chilling line: "Everybody used everybody." In the end, Marcus Freeman walked out of court a free man, but a broken one. He had lost his brother, his wife, and his reputation in a storm of lies and manipulation. His daughter, now without both parents, moved in with relatives out of state. Neighbors said Marcus barely spoke again after his release, and his construction business eventually shut down. The story of the Freeman family became a cautionary tale across Atlanta, a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't strangers, but the ones who stand closest to you. And that trust, once twisted by greed and resentment, can destroy everything it touches. What began as a simple workplace tragedy became a web of betrayal, deceit, and revenge, one that took 2 lives and nearly a third. In the quiet corners of southwest Atlanta, the echoes of that summer still linger. People still remember the Freeman house, the arguments that kept them awake at night, and the moment they learned that the man always lending a helping hand was the one holding the crowbar all along. And as the camera fades, one thought remains clear: evil doesn't always knock loudly. It sometimes lets itself in through the front door.